State captivity is the greatest impediment to a healthy nation, the single most destructive mechanism that has for the last 4 decades perhaps more undermined any meaningful development of the nation. It places majority of a country's wealth in very few hands.
People whose wealth, even in dollar terms, is thousands and thousands of times more than the average wealth of ordinary Kenyans, and the ability of these people to capture policy, state policy, is enormous.
But this does not happen by default. It's a well-calculated move, mostly conceived and planned to the last detail long before a government gets into power. The people behind it often plan with the politicians. They may be just the politicians themselves.
Parts of the government in themselves become a cartel, and the transactions and procurements that they enter into are engineered from the outset for theft. When you have that kind of situation, then we're talking about thieves. Now, poraji wa mali.
At their disposal are funds that have been stolen from previous governments. They use it to support a cause, mostly bankrolling the campaigns of their preferred choice of a leader. At the tail end, they expect return of favor. This is where the capturing begins. It ends when the governments become unable to deal with them.
The stealing is from everywhere. The most popular is areas which can be protected by the words national security. So you steal from police, you steal from military, you steal from procurement in defense and in those areas. Then you steal from the the areas in which a government is supposed to spend significant, a developing country is supposed to spend significant amount of money, whether it is health, education. These become areas that people will also target.
This is why many observers and analysts believe Kenya is in the age of the fully fledged criminal business enterprise referred to as cartels.
I still believe that we have those particular issues of cartels and the corruption. So it's basically it, right?
An example of a state under siege is in a 2005 report by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The report shows that 50% of all procurement transactions involved corruption. Further, 13% of procurement officers and 23% of suppliers were aware of instances of external procurement influence, mostly by politicians and senior civil servants. The same survey found that 7% of suppliers had access to the procuring entity's budget prior to the tender submission, while another 6% had access during the bid submission. Even more shocking is 46% of suppliers admitted to knowing rival bidders' companies that were owned directly or by proxy or by public officers. The NYS saga revealed how supplementary budget, also known as revised estimates, became the new point of entry into the annual budget process. The looted amount was actually requested for as an addition to the initial allocation. The saddest thing about state capture is that it inevitably leads to violence and politics of intolerance. However, not all is lost. There are those leaders who have gotten out of the captivity, and indeed, many of them still can. So is there a way to get out of this state captivity?
Those who have been able to emerge, the Mandelas and Nyereres, the Thomas Sankaras, who've been able to emerge, despite even making political mistakes, who've been able to emerge with the respect of Africans to this day, the main thing they did not do, they did not steal.
Heading into the election, perhaps these are some of the factors to consider. Most important, how to loosen the state from the captors who are already lining up, pledging allegiances with the ultimate goal of plundering public resources. Ken Mijungu, NTV.